Hi guys, one of the major discussions that has come up since the last Let's Play video that I released was me changing the sneak penalty and the arrow mismatch penalty on Ace, and a few people have said I'm cheating, and a few, basically I'm making things easier for myself, and I don't actually agree because I don't think I've made anything easier in the slightest. I think all I've done is remove something that's slightly irritating. But the conversation, it's sort of going on and it's taking quite a lot of time, and I thought it would just be easier to sort of show you what I'm thinking. And the basic premise on Ace, for example, we'll deal with the sneak with the longbow problem at first, is that the longbow here is, oh no, that's not a longbow, that's a longbow, is too big, and it causes sneak to be a problem. And as far as I know, now I may be wrong on this, the sneak penalty seems to apply, I mean, again, I may actually be wrong on this, but it applies even when the bow is not out. So I take the bow out. If I check my, it says archery longbow, sneaking, but sneaking with it is 40% more difficult, right? And I put it away, and that effect still seems to be there. So I'm assuming it doesn't disappear when I put the weapon away. It's when it's equipped. Now, if I'm wrong, please tell me, because that would be brilliant. Because that's the problem I've got. The problem I've got with this is sneaking once you put it away. And people have come up with a variety of reasons why it should be, but I'm going to deal with that in a minute. What I'm first of all going to show you is why it irritates me. If I'm sneaking around like this, I normally play the game first person. I honestly have no idea what weapon I'm using. If I remember that I'm using the longbow, I can press a button. For example, let's get dagger on my. I'm going to put dagger on my favourites. I'm also going to put the arrows on favourites for a reason I will show you in a while. And steel dagger. So if I press the 3 key now, I've selected dagger, and I know I've got dagger now. Well, actually, you know what? I don't know I've got dagger, because if I already had dagger selected and I pressed that key, of course I would now be empty-handed. But we saw the bow. Let me get rid of the shield. So if I put the bow back, if I press dagger, suddenly I'm sneaking. I'm assuming my archery. There's my archery. My sneaking is now fine. Yep. And I now press select longbow, and suddenly I'm not sneaking as well. And I have a problem with that because in game, I just don't know. So I'm constantly going to be going inventory. Oh, there, longbow, I need to change. Or I'm constantly going to be going, right, I'm sneaking. No, I don't have the bow. That's okay. I'm going to be constantly doing that. I'm constantly having to check what my character should actually already know. And it's just that's going to be one of these things that's constant irritation, this constant sort of, oh, I'm sneaking. What am I using? What? A dagger, I'm fine. Okay, I can sneak. And then I stop, and then I get into position, stand up, draw my bow, and kill whatever, right? And I have a problem because it constantly makes me check my inventory or actually draw the weapon into my hand. And I actually like to move without weapons in my hands. I'm not sure if sneaking's easier with like that, but I know you move slightly faster, or at least I think you do. That could be in my imagination. Anyway, so you get the reason that I really don't like the fact that the penalty applies once the weapon is away. I also think it's completely unrealistic. It sort of breaks my immersion. Now, a lot of people are going to say, no, but you've got a great big 6-foot long bow on your back. That's going to make sneaking hard. And I sort of agree with you. In fact, it would actually be easier to sneak carrying the longbow in your hand. So that would actually be easier to sneak than on your back. So I sort of agree with you, right? So, but here's the thing. I'm now going to select my dagger. Where's my bow gone? Now, just think about that for a second. I've now got my dagger selected so that if I pull out my dagger's in my hand. There you go, put it away. But where's my bow actually gone? Well, it's still on my back, isn't it? I mean, let's be brutally honest. I know it isn't shown here, but that's a part of the game mechanics, that it only shows whichever weapon you have currently selected. But if you're going to use realism as an excuse for the longbow causing sneak problems, you have to explain to me where that longbow has gone. Because we're now using the realism argument. And that's the thing. Skyrim's inventory is unrealistic. It's I can have several huge, enormous weapons. I can have several sets of armor, and you don't see anything on my character. It's one of those things that's unrealistic, but it's done basically because otherwise your character would look like a pack mule. Now, there are mods that actually is armed to the teeth, for example, that would leave the bows showing on my back. In which case, I would really argue that when I then pulled the dagger, of course, the bow would still be there, and that would show exactly what I mean. But I don't think you need that mod to get the idea that somehow it's unrealistic that as soon as I switch to dagger, my bow has magically it's gone. I've put it in my pocket, and apparently it's shrunk. So the realism thing fails because the inventory and the equipment is, unrealistic anyway. Not to mention the fact that I think you then have to say that any two-handed weapon whatsoever would cause sneak problems. And I would also argue that should cause sneak problems. The sword sticking out like that should probably cause more problems than a longbow in your hand. So this is one of the reasons I don't like it. It constantly causes me to macro manage, and I don't feel it's realistic. I do understand that it's there to try and encourage you to use short bows for stealthy, fast attacks, and longbows for major combat attacks. But I put it to you that the penalty is the wrong way round. What they've done is they've made holding the longbow penalise sneaking. And I think what Ace should have done is make sneaking penalise longbow. To me, the longbow is supposed to be huge, and so when you draw back, it's probably going to have a larger draw. By that I mean you pull your hand slightly further back than you would on a small bow. And I would argue that when sneaking like this, you're not going to be able to pull the arrow quite as far back as you could if you were stood up. You wouldn't be able to pull it quite as far back, therefore the arrow will go slower, it will not go as far, it will not do as much damage, and it will not penetrate. So what I would have done is actually say, when sneaking, the longbow does the same base damage as light bows, has no critical bonus whatsoever. Any of the perks you have to go through armor are nullified in sneak. I would make it so that using longbow is borderline useless in sneak, so that you would just automatically switch to your light bow. Not the other way around. I think making sneak useless when carrying a longbow causes macro management, right? So basically, that's why I disabled the sneak penalty using the longbow, because in the end, I don't actually think it actually does make you any less powerful, because all you do is switch to dagger. You switch to dagger, then switch to longbow and take the shot. Now, of course, it's okay if you've got a different opinion to me and you disagree with me, etc. I mean, I completely understand. I'm just trying to get over to you why I find this mechanic to be slightly annoying. But let's now talk about the arrows, the long and the light arrows. Now, I happen to think this is a great idea that unfortunately doesn't work that well in the way it's currently implemented. Basically, for those of you who don't know, with Ace, if you use a light hunting bow, but accidentally use long arrows instead of light arrows, you get a 20% damage reduction. And I think that's perfectly reasonable. I think that's actually realistic, and I like that, except for the fact that if I equip my light bow and then check what arrows I've got, it's automatically equipped long arrows. And let's say I now equip light arrows and then switch to longbow. I've still got the light arrows So I have to keep going to my inventory and switching. Now, you can set them up on your favorites and do it from there. And as other people have said, you can assign some hotkeys to them if you want. My problem is I only use 8 hotkeys. And the reason for that is I don't use a normal keyboard for gaming. And I use the 9 key for reload and sheath weapon and that type of thing. Not reload, sheath weapon. Don't ask why, but the thing is I've only got 8 hotkeys, and I've got basically sword, shield, dagger, 2 bows, and then I want a few for potions and healing. I don't want to be wasting 2 hotkeys on arrows. And people will say, well, you can install a mod that will give you more hotkeys. And yeah, you can, but that's installing a mod to handle something that's slightly annoying. So I don't want mods that I don't really feel I should require. I think the 8 hotkeys that I'm going to use is just about enough for a non-magic character. And I also don't want to be constantly pressing the arrows every time I select this. Now, apparently you can actually set up equipment sets so that I could actually press a key and it would select the light bow and the light arrows. I think that should be part of Ace or some. I mean, here's the thing. I'm actually thinking that I might make my own mod that does this. That if I equip the longbow, it equips the long arrows that I last had equipped, and then if I equip the light one, it does the same with the light arrows. That would then completely remove the problem I have with this mod. Because here's the thing. Do you guys know what arrow I'm using right now? Because I don't. I forgot. So I've got my hunting bow, but I don't know what arrow. I've got to go to the inventory and check. I've got my light bow. No, I've got my long arrows. So I would be... That's the thing. I don't know. I've got to constantly macro manage. And the only way I could know without macro managing my inventory is by pulling the drawstring back and seeing the arrow and thinking, oh, damn, it's a long arrow. Quick, better change it. That, to me, is a game mechanic that irritates me. So although I completely understand this penalty, and I like the penalty, it's more irritating than balancing. I would just like to apologise for saying that light bows were useless. That was probably very unfair of me. Light bows are not useless because, in fact, as long as you're using the correct arrow, they do fire faster. So although they do a lot less damage per shot, it probably gets made up for the fact that you get more arrows in people. And that's probably actually fairly good for close combat. So I am going to try using light bows more anyway, and when you start putting more ranks into the perks, where was it? Archery. Basically, as soon as I get this one, the light bow training, I get double added critical damage. Really is a massive boost when doing sneak attacks. So, at the moment, though, as you guys know, in the actual Let's Play, I don't have any light arrows, so it's well, no, it's probably still not pointless because it would still do a lot of damage even with the 20% penalty. So I am going to give light bows a chance. I am going to use them. And I am also willing to reinstate those 2 penalties and try them further. As I said, I honestly think it's going to cause me to do a little bit more macro management, although maybe what I need to start doing is sneaking in third person, and then when I go back to normal, non-sneaking, then go to first person, because that, of course, would alleviate the problem of wondering whether I had a longbow. I could just, if I had a longbow, I would very quickly be able to switch away from it. And actually, sneaking in third person can be quite useful because you can get to look around corners. So I am willing to put these back in, but I am worried that it will cause more macro management that may irritate me, but may also irritate people watching, because the constant need to sort of, light arrows. Yes, I've got the right arrow. That type of thing may cause irritation. And of course, invariably, I'm going to do things like this, where I forget which arrow I've got, and in the middle of battle, start shooting with my longbow with light arrows, and people are going to be face palming hugely because I didn't, in fact, macro manage. So it's going to be one of those things where I honestly think people are going to start getting annoyed with me. So yeah, I may think about creating a mod that auto-equips the correct type of arrow. I may do that. I was also thinking it may be worth me making a mod that actually, when sneaking, unequips your longbow.
I might just be a servant among lords,
Go away.
but don't
I
think for a
may
moment I
do
will
that
take
because, of course,
that
if I do that, if I can sort of rely on the fact that as soon as I'm sneaking, I unequip my longbow and that penalty goes, I'll be happy. And maybe I could even equip if you've got a longbow, equip the last light bow, which might be quite useful actually. So yeah, I am willing to put these penalties back in. But I am willing to think about making some mods to alleviate the pain. So that's it. Comments below. Give me your opinions. It's been a great conversation in text, etc. But I was getting tired of typing. So there's a lot of my babble. Hope that made sense. Okay?